Let's talk about The Legend of Zelda, the Minish Cap. We decided not to include dungeons on our definitive ranking of the Minish Cap because we wanted to save them for another day. That day is today. So, Minish Cap, we had kind of a good discussion in our Discord after we were done with that episode, and specifically about the dungeons. And I think a lot of people took umbrage with my suggestion that less is more with Minish Cap.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But I think, like, I really do stand by that. Like, I really do think that, the fewer. I mean, listen, if there were if there was 10 dungeons and they were all exceptional and they were all awesome, like, yeah, that would be great. But I do think that there is a point in some Zelda games where, like, you can have like a bunch of exceptional dungeons, but after a certain point, it's just like, okay, the next dungeon and the next. It's like, okay, I'm kind of ready for it to be over. And I'm just speaking from my experience, where like they start to bleed together and blend together a little bit. It's like, it's like the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie sequel, really great. Second one, pretty good. Fourth one, it's like, okay, do we need this? Fifth one, it's like, maybe it was time to stop. You know what I mean? It's like there is
Yeah.
such a thing as too much of a good thing. So people I don't think were down with my assessment there, but I'm sticking to it. So let's get it
Yeah.
going here, and let's rank these dungeons definitive style and
Okay.
determine which one is the best one. So we only have six. Actually, we only have six dungeons, so I'm wondering if we maybe want to switch it up here, Al. Usually, sometimes we'll go in like progression of like the dungeons and how you would do them in the game. I don't know. Should we try just like a different gimmick here? Maybe just like pick one at random, or how do you want to do this? I feel like I'm in the mood to switch it up a little bit. Is that
I
too scandalous? Too
I don't know if it's scandalous, but I feel like they definitely progress in a specific way. So I feel like if we're all over the place and say we end on Deepwood Shrine, I don't know how I'd feel about that.
all right. Every time I try and do something fun around here, okay. Well, then I'll tell you what. You pick our first dungeon, which I'm assuming is Deepwood Shrine, correct?
Yeah, we can mix it up, but like maybe we combine the first three and the last three, and
No,
then mix it up in between.
it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Let's just go in
Okay,
sequential
okay,
order.
okay. Let me go with Deepwood Shrine.
Okay. Well, Deepwood Shrine. Get it started here, Al. What are you thinking?
I think that this is a spectacular intro dungeon into the Minish Cap, and I can't remember what I expressed when we were talking about intro dungeons back in the day. Um, but I feel like this is such a good way of showing like exactly what we're gonna get ourselves into with Minish Cap as far as shrinking, as far as puzzles. Um, it had a really cool first item, the Gust Jar, and like
Yeah.
the puzzles that we had to use in order to or we had to use the Gust Jar in order to solve. So the moving barrel was such a cool thing. I love that barrel and like how you needed like the Gust Jar to move webs from one part, so you couldn't get there for the first portion of the dungeon. You had to like walk on it to roll it so you can get to a new part of the dungeon. I thought that was such a cool like unique twist to dungeon life that we're used to in Zelda. So it's actually I might rank this pretty high actually for like Minish Cap dungeons. But also like some of the little enemies are cool. I don't know what the heck the caterpillar thing is called, but it reminds me of like the centipedes from Skyward Sword, which are always fun and challenging. And then of course the giant choo choo at the end was such a cool twist on a standard enemy that we're
Yeah.
used to. Turning it into a boss fight with little tiny Picori Link. I love it. I thought that was so clever and fun. So, and the fact that you have to use the Gust Jar to defeat the Choo Choo is fantastic as well. So, I mean, obviously this is number one for now, but I'm gonna probably keep it pretty high.
I think I would agree with that. I think that as far as like intro dungeons go, this is one of the best in the series. It's got like the thing that I appreciate about this dungeon is it is kind of what I was trying to allude to when we talked about the like the Minish Cap dungeons in general, but like usually in like a lot of 2D Zelda games, not all of them, and they're not every room, but like a lot of them have like very specific rooms where like it's a box and then you go into the room and it's another box and the screen shifts over and it's a very grid based system. And with Minish Cap, you kind of start off and you have like your first little room, and then you have this ginormous room with this big barrel, and to your left you kind of got this winding room that you need to traverse in order to get to the centipede. To your right you have this like room with two options, water kind of in the middle. So it's like, it feels like each room is like a unique room and not just like kind of another box. And I feel like Minish Cap has that going for it in all of its dungeons throughout like the entire game. But I think that this one, like, yeah, it has a lot of personality. I love the barrel in the middle, and I think like the Gust Jar, like, you get a ton of utility from that in this dungeon. Like, you are using it to blow away the like little dust on the ground, which lets you do stuff. You're using it to break away cobwebs, which lets you go more places. You're using it to push your little lily pad, which also lets you go more places. There's some pretty fun puzzles with that too. Well, I guess not puzzles, but like just like you kind of getting around and stuff like that, which I think is fun. So like, yeah, I think, I would say that probably a consistent weakness of all the dungeons in Minish Cap, which I'll just bring up now, is like the music for, I would say, almost all of them is just kind of like, it is what it is. It's fine. It's not the worst, and it fits, but it's not anything that you'd probably listen to after and be like, whoa, yeah, awesome. So I will say that. But yeah, like I think for this dungeon specifically, like the Gust Jar is great. The first boss battle is great. And it really does. Like, it really sets you up on what to expect from this game going forward. The only thing that it doesn't really do is integrate shrinking in the dungeon as much as other dungeons.
Yeah, I was about to say, is this the only dungeon where you stay you're small the whole time?
Pretty much.
Because the other dungeons, you're large, and then you have those platforms that you could shrink down and solve puzzles, which we'll talk about. But this is the only one where it kind of feels like you're normal because you seem normal sized.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. So I would say probably not going to finish at number 1 for me, but I think it's strong. Like, I think it's pretty strong. You know what? That's not true. The other dungeon that you stay tiny is the Temple of Droplets, because you have to shrink down into that iceberg gimmick.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So,
okay.
So there is 2, but yeah. I think this is a strong one. I think this is like I said, I think all the dungeons in this game are actually like really, really good, but I can see this one kind of contending for that upper echelon of dungeons. So yeah.
All right.
Deepwood Shrine, number 1 for right now. Okay, I want to talk about Fortress of Winds first. So why don't you take the Cave of Flamos, and we'll talk about that, and then I'll take us away with the fortress after.
Okay, so Cave of Flames.
Should we explain this, by the way?
Yeah, explain the Cave of Flamos for us.
I don't remember quite where it came. So
Definitely a marathon thing.
It was a marathon thing, 2018. I was making like some really scribbly notes on a piece of paper, and I put Cave of Flames, but somehow my E looked like an O. So someone came along and was like, Cave of Flamos? What the hell is this? And it's stuck ever since. So Cave of Flamos.
There we go.
So
getting up to the Cave of Flames is, a nice fun trip up a mountain like we do usually to get to Fire S dungeons.
Yeah.
And then again, you're actually normal size, but this is the first time you start utilizing shrinking and solving puzzles. You're in this kind of like mine, right? So it's kind of cool because you have the mine carts, and like this is the funniest iteration of mine carts that I've ever seen. You hop in it, and great. it just wheels Link's around at an obnoxious like crazy speed, and Link is screaming the whole time. It's like going on a roller coaster for him, so it's kind of funny. I forgot that was a thing until I played it recently. And so it's kind of fun. You get to solve puzzles that way, go zip-zapping around the dungeon, but also. You need bombs in this dungeon, but there's also those little bombs those guys walking around, and if you time it right, you can get them to blow up the walls for you, and I think that's pretty cool. So like it's kind of like having bomb flowers, but not being able to pick it up and guide it the way you want. You have to kind of guide an enemy that zip-zaps around too.
Yeah. So
that's pretty fun. I also there was also like this part where you fly around. So you use Eslo as like kind of like a parachute, and you have to fly over the lava portions. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a funny visual, but it was kind of also awkward because the depth of like certain portions or the height of certain cliffs, you don't really realize that you're on them or not on them. I thought it was a little janky, but otherwise cute and like a fun way to solve puzzles in one of the larger rooms, the larger lava rooms. And then the lava platforms would also break away. I'm trying to remember what the item was. Is that the cane that you get in this one?
It's the cane of Pachi. Is that how you say it? Pacci?
Probably.
Yeah, I think the cane of Pachi, which has, again, a lot of like really fun utility because you're using it to flip over the spires, you're using it to boost yourself. Very fun item.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you like flip over the platforms to walk on them, but you also like you can like use the cane on a hole and then hop in the hole and it like propels you up to a platform. So I thought that was an interesting little item to utilize as well. And then we get to the boss. I thought the boss was pretty fun. I'm trying to remember. What's that?
His name is Glee Rock. You just
Glee Rock.
Absolutely love it.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think it's cool how you like utilize the boss itself. You utilize his head and his neck, like you knock him down, and then you cross him like a bridge to get to his weak point in the center, and you would just start wailing on him. And I thought that was a fun boss. I loved the like lava flow coming in and out, so you had to avoid that, the rocks falling. It was a very fun, like super intense kind of boss fight for a little game like Minish Cap.
Yeah. One thing that that this game I think consistently does actually in every boss battle is like you really use the item that you get in the dungeon to like great effect fighting the boss. Like, and not to say that like in other games you don't, but I just feel like in this game like you really, I don't know, it feels like it's just like really vital to use the item that you got, and they use it in like really sensible ways that are rewarding for you to play as. So yeah, I really love that Glee Rock fight. I think it's great. There's something about like the minecart levels that just do it for me. Like it's I don't know, just seeing Link just be like wah, flying back is like charming every time. And there are some pretty fun puzzles where you have to flip the minecarts and then like change the directions of which way the tracks are going, which is like a pretty standard and well-worn trope, but I think it's like when it's done right, it's really fun. So yeah, I think that Cave of Flamos is like, I really like it because it kind of ups the ante a little bit. It does integrate a little bit more of like the shrinking down puzzles and stuff like that. There's a couple different puzzles, like that one puzzle actually where like you have to shrink down and get rid of the wall masters and then go like all the way around. Like you go in between the two spikes as you're moving. Always kind of gives me anxiety, so that's really fun. I'm not sure if I would rank it above Deepwood Shrine. I think I would.
I wouldn't either. I mean, it's definitely a fun dungeon, and I like it more than a couple others that we're going to talk about. But I feel like personality-wise, Deepwood Shrine has so much more personality and so much more uniqueness than Cave of Flames. Like, Cave of Flames has a couple of things that, like, the floating around with as low as your little parachute is cute, and the boss fight's cool, and the cane is cool. But aside from that, it feels like a very standard dungeon to me. So I would keep Deepwood above it.
I think, you know what, maybe that's exactly why, because the Cave of Flamos is awesome. Like, everything about it is awesome, but it still kind of does, it feels like an intro dungeon almost. But it's not in that position. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you could flip Deepwood and you could flip Cave of Flamos, and I feel like it wouldn't be completely out of place.
It's like the Dodongo's Cavern of Minish Cap.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comparison.
And I don't mean that in the way it's themed either. I just mean this, like
that's a great
standard of dungeon.
Yeah. So I feel like while I think that Cave of Flamos kind of improves on a lot that Deepwood Shrine does, I don't think it improves like substantially enough for me to rank it above it because of the context of I just think like Deepwood is such a strong intro dungeon, and like this is a solid follow-up, but like not, because it's not a strong intro dungeon or a last dungeon. Like I think that's kind of stuff does affect like the rankings and stuff like that. So okay, so our list right now is Deepwood Shrine at number 1, Cave of Flamos at number 2, and I want to talk about the Fortress of Winds because I think that this is a lot of people's least favorite dungeon in this game. But I quite enjoy this dungeon. I think, like, I love the verticality of it and the structure of it. Like, I love that, your first inclination will obviously be to go straight forward and forge a path straight ahead, but you need to go to the left and the right in order to do anything in this dungeon first. And I just kind of like that it kind of subverts your expectations. So you can go up, you do your thing, you get your keys, and then you're finally able to go into this dungeon and start exploring it properly. And like, I guess I can understand why some people are like kind of iffy on it, because I think that there is a degree of like, so there's a point in the dungeon where you can go on the left path or the right path. And there is one path that you should go on first before you go on the other. But if you don't know that, when you go on the wrong path first, it's just kind of like, this feels like a big waste of time. Like I wasn't able to do anything here. And I get that's valid, but if you do know that, and you can go and you do your thing and you get the mole mitts, which are an awesome item. I love them. I think that the dungeon is really fun, and pacing wise, it's really fun. So I love the fact that like this dungeon, we're integrating some four sword puzzles where we're splitting up now. We're integrating like the turning into a Minish, which by the way, you could get like a heart piece. Actually, you get a heart piece in every dungeon, but this one I really think is fun, where like you get the heart piece and you fall down as a Minish, and then you get the heart piece at the end. This dungeon is also loaded with secrets. So like once you get the mole mitts, you can go back to the beginning, claw your way to the left, claw your way to the right, and get a bunch of like rupees and kinstones and other kind of goodies like that. But I feel like what really puts the icing on the cake for this dungeon is the boss. I think that the boss, whose name
you like this type of boss.
I do. What's his name again? It's escaping me.
It's Mazal in this game.
So he's basically like Mecha Bongo Bongo, right? So like it's such a fun like boss. You shoot his hands, you gotta slash him, and then you shrink down, and like it's such a fun realization of like all the different gimmicks. It's like the shrinking gimmick, the mole mitt item that you just got, the arrows, which you didn't get before, or you didn't get during the dungeon, but you got them right before. So it feels like you're rewarded for like using all of your all the items that you have at your disposal. So I really like this dungeon. I would probably rank it number 1 on this list right now, and I realize that that's probably not gonna fly, but that's just what I'm doing. Oh, by the way, actually, the puzzle that I was describing with the 2 spires, or the 2 like metal things, that's in this dungeon. I'm sorry, that's not the Cave of Flamos, where you have to do that puzzle with the wall masters, and then you go in between.
Oh,
the
yes,
two.
yes.
I was getting ahead of myself, but yeah, I love this. I love this dungeon. I think it's like fantastic.
I would say that I did like this dungeon as far as going through it. So I had to kind of filter through some images of it really quick just to kind of remind myself. But I do like a lot of the dungeons that we get in some Zelda games where you have to fall through the floor and you have to position yourself correctly in order to get to a different location in the dungeon. There's a lot of that in A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So I really like those kind of dungeons, and you kind of have to like gauge, if I fall in this part of the floor, I will fall down to that portion that was blocked off to me earlier. I love that.
Yeah.
Makes me feel super smart. And then also, the digging mitts are a fantastic item. I like them, this iteration of them versus like maybe Skyward Sword's iteration of them, because you get to use them like you get to be standing up digging through these giant piles of dirt, and it's just like, it's an awesome utilization of the tool. Plus they're like a shovel too, so you can use them as a shovel. So I like a lot of the rooms where you get to dig. It's just kind of fun and satisfying, I guess. It's not even like particularly like special or fantastic. It's just satisfying to do. And then I would agree that Mazal, I don't know how to pronounce it, is a fantastic.
Mecha Bongo Bongo, because that's what he is.
I love it. He's a fun boss fight. He is a little bit challenging too. The way his hands move was a little like difficult to navigate, but in a good way, that it made me like take a little bit longer on this boss fight. I also appreciate shrinking down, going into his little head and trying to deconstruct him from the inside. I thought that was a fun little like gimmick for a boss fight. The only thing I don't like about this dungeon is it feels useless at the end. And, like, I know it's not. I understand. But I'm just like, man, I came in here to get some kind of gem thing, and it's not here. That is so dumb.
Yeah, okay. But, like, I mean, come on. That's not part of the dungeon itself. And you do get fast travel for doing that.
I guess. But still, it's just kind of like, man, I feel like this is the third dungeon of however many. purposely didn't look how many there were, so I kind of was assuming there was 5 for some reason. Because remember, I haven't played this game in a really long time, and I haven't seen more than like the first chunk and the last chunk from the marathon. So I was just like, okay, this is the third one. I finished it, and then it turns out you're gonna have to go do another one later. So I was just a little frustrated with that.
All right. Well, I'm just gonna throw out one last thing about this dungeon out there. Like I mentioned, I think that you mentioned that you love feeling smart in whatever when you're playing dungeons. I think you could feel really smart playing this dungeon, like because it's like I said, there is a wrong way to go. So if you go the right way, it's a very rewarding feeling. I think a lot of people might potentially skip the moments because if you're not looking for it, it's a little bit hard to catch, like where you have to bomb that wall to get the moments. And there's also a small key with the same thing. So I feel like if you know this dungeon, you can play it. And I feel like really smart when I'm playing it because I'm just like, I feel like I'm flying. I'm like, I'm doing everything optimally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I get what you're saying about like not getting the payoff to it. I get that. Doesn't bother me. I would put it at number 1. What do you think?
I like Deepwood better. I think this one's more involved than Cave of Flames, though. So I would put it in second.
All right, fine. Fine.
I know my gripe about the end is goofy, and it's actually pretty unique for you to go through a dungeon and not get the thing at the end. Like, I get where they were going with it, but I was just kind of like, this is... I don't like that.
Okay, well, let's talk about the Temple of Droplets. And I feel like this is maybe one that a lot of people are divided on. Because I think some people really like it. I think some people really don't. I quite like this dungeon, actually. I think that it has a lot of things going for it, which I like. Some things that I don't, but like I think for the most part, there's like enough unique stuff here that I quite enjoy. First of all, I'm a sucker for like a good ice block puzzle. Right? I like those. It's kind of
yeah.
It's fun to do, right? Like I think that there's also something to be said for like just those. I don't know. It's kind of like cute and charming. Like you're small and you're in this tiny little iceberg, and like this is where this element is hidden. So I like that, and it does like some things differently. Like you get the boss key very early, and you can see the boss like staring you at the face, but you can't actually access the boss yet. So you have to actually go and do the dungeon proper when you get the dungeon key. And there's a lot of like pretty fun puzzles in here. The lily pad comes back, which is like, yeah, okay, whatever. But like I feel like there's like enough returning gimmicks here where they feel a little bit fresh. Like the choo-choo comes back, or the chew comes back, and he's electric this time, which is cool. The caterpillar does come back, and you can fight him if you want to, but you don't have to.
I didn't know that.
I think there's 2 of them, isn't there, in this dungeon?
Same space?
Yeah, in the same space. Yeah. So lots of good like little ice puzzles, like where you have to kind of watch your movement and whatever. I would say that while it's not like a unique item by any stretch, like I think that the lantern is kind of awesome actually, because like it serves again a bunch of different utilities and feels like right at home in this dungeon where you're melting ice, you're lighting up rooms. That's the only thing I don't really love is like the parts where like it's quite dark. Like that's kind of like but yeah, like I think that it's like a pretty solid dungeon. Like I think that the boss, I think it's probably the weakest boss in the game. I think like the big off.
Yeah. Okay. I would say like the dynamic of, or like the gameplay of it is weak. Like it's not very intuitive or like involved. But I will say I struggled with him because I knew what I wanted with. But I agree with what you're saying.
But I like. I'm not saying it's bad. I think it's quite fun, especially when you're like frantically on ice trying to like skate around him and light his tail on fire. I don't think it's like the strongest boss in the game. So I think that brings us down just a little bit. Like I said, I think you're on the lily pad a little bit too much in this dungeon. So there's some cons, but I think there's a lot more pros. I think I would probably put this one below Fortress of Winds and above the Cave of Flamos if it were up to me. But what say you?
I do like an aspect of a dungeon. So I'm not big. Everybody knows I'm not a big fan of ice dungeons, and except for the one in Spirit Tracks, I love that one. This one is okay. It's not the worst in the Zelda series. And the block puzzles, the ice block puzzles were fine. I unfortunately, I there was one I had to look up, and I was so mad at how simple it was. So I'm a little frustrated with that.
Was
But
it the second one with like the 3 blocks or the 2 blocks
yeah,
in the key? Yeah, that one's tough. That one's tough.
I was like, dang it. I feel like I should have figured that out on my own. So that one didn't make me feel very smart. But what I appreciate most about this dungeon is you go off and do one section and you open up the ceiling, and then you go off and do the other section and you open up the other half of the ceiling, and that melts the boss. And I kind of like it when a dungeon has like that kind of duology where you figure out one side and it halfway opens your end goal, and then the other side, and I think that's pretty cool in a dungeon. So I like that aspect, especially when you could see the end result is your boss, like is the boss. Usually it's like the boss room, but like you can see I'm about to thaw off this guy and fight him. So I thought that was pretty unique and cool. The item is pretty like this is probably the most standard item, the lantern. And then like you said, the boss fight, it's not like the greatest boss fight, most exciting, but it can be a little bit frustrating, a little difficult and challenging with the ice. So I don't know if that was in its favor though. Let's see. I would say Cave of Flames and this one are kind of interchangeable to me, but maybe I do. No, I like Cave of Flames better.
Okay, well, this is where we're at then. So I want to put it above Cave of Flames, and I wanted to put Fortress of Winds above Deepwood Shrine. So if we put Temple of Droplets last, that means that you owe me 2, and we only have 2 dungeons left, Al. So what
I don't like that. So I will give you this one.
You can owe me 2. It's
okay. No, that's fine. I don't want to.
When I was 19, my sister came up to me. She's 15 years old. She's like, she had a boyfriend at the time, and her boyfriend bought her like a little necklace from like what are those stores called? The jewelry stores in the mall, like
Zay
like
or
Claire's or whatever. Do you guys have
okay, Claire's. Okay. Yeah.
So she lost it. She's like, can you lend me some money to buy a replacement? And I was like, sure. So I lent her $100. And she's like, I only have $80.
Not be buying anything at Claire's for $100.
Well, I don't. Maybe it wasn't Claire. Anyways, so she paid me back, and she's like, I only have $80, and I was like, that's fine, because I thought, and I believe this even truer to this day. So I took the $80, and I was like, that extra $20 is way more valuable as leverage than in actual money in my pocket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you want, we could rank Temple of Droplets last.
You sound just like me and my... Oh my god, I do this with Andy all the time. So me and my brother Andy do that crap all the time. Anyways, I would prefer if you take your win now.
Fine.
I don't want to owe you in the future.
All right, so let's read off this list that we got so far. Number 1, we have Deepwood Shrine. Number 2, the Fortress of Winds. 3, Temple of Droplets. And in last place, which pains me a little bit because I love this dungeon, but the Cave of Flamos is down there. Let's go over to the Palace of Winds, and I have something to say about this dungeon, and that is, I even last week or the week before when we were talking about the dungeons of the Minish cap, I was kind of like, I really like Palace of Winds, but it's really, really long. And I actually, like, I was replaying it. So when we were doing our Minish cap definitive ranking episode, I didn't have a chance to play all of the game yet. I was only about to, let's just say, right before Fortress of Winds. Since then, I have finished the game 100%. I got all the kinstones, which is miserable. But I would say that this is not as like disgustingly long as I remember. It's long. Don't get me wrong. But I never felt like while I was playing, I was like, this is too long. And I think it's because the item that you get is like so fun and like you can use it in so many different ways. And I feel like most importantly, it makes movement in general just like a lot not quicker, but like maybe, I don't know, more fun, more zippy, more I don't know, something. But like I think that this dungeon is kind of a realization of the game. There's a lot of great puzzles here. There's like there's tons of different puzzles of every kind. There's ones where you have to shrink. There's ones where you have to push blocks and pots. There's ones where you have to like jump in between moving platforms. There's one where you have to time your jumps to get into those like little Super Mario World grates that spin when you land on them. Stuff that you have to climb. There's good combat in here. You've got the ball and chain guy. So like this dungeon really does have a little bit of everything. I would say that it probably could be slimmed down a little bit, but it's not like egregiously long, I don't think. It could probably do without that portion where like it's dark and like you have to use your lantern to light it up. That one's kind of lame, but I think that at least for me it wasn't as like completely painful as I remember. And I think like, man, what is this boss's name?
This is
Gyorg.
Gyorg.
This fight is awesome. I don't even want to hear it if you're disagreeing. This fight is awesome. It's such an awesome way that like to use the rock's cape and like the force sword ability, and like it's so intense. You've got stuff flying at you. You're desperately it's so fun. I'm not gonna say that this is like number one, but I'm also looking at this list right now, and we're 4 dungeons in, and I don't think that Deepwood Shrine is the best dungeon. So I don't know. I might have to say like this might be the top of the list for me.
Oh my god.
It might.
I disagree. Listen, this dungeon has so many cool aspects. Like there's so many cool elements to it, but it's like the kitchen sink. You threw everything in there, and it's long AF. It takes a good minute to get there, even. I feel like the only saving grace about it is the item and the boss fight. So
those are pretty big saving graces.
Okay, but even still, it's just like I'm using Zelda Dungeons walkthrough as a kind of a refresher to be like, okay, yep, I remember doing all that because it's been a few weeks since I played this game now. And it's just like I'm like scrolling. I'm like, dang, when does this dungeon end? It's too long. You've got like the chain ball guys that you mentioned. You've got moblins. You've got Pose, or are they Pose? No, they're not Pose. The Wizrobes. Thank you, Allison, for remembering that. And you've got Dark Nuts. You've got like the whole kitchen sink in this dungeon, and it's just like, for why? There's a point where you reach like the seeming end of this dungeon, and even Eslo is like, how long is this place? How long is this gonna take? I feel like right there it should have been your cutoff, and you go fight the boss. That should have been the end of that dungeon.
It's a long dungeon. It's definitely
too
long.
Much. It's too much. And even with some like cool, fun, interesting puzzles and cool, fun, interesting ways of like backtracking to get to a new location of the dungeon, it was too much for me. I was over it. So I wouldn't say this is my favorite dungeon by any means. Also, I find it weird that this manta ray thing is called a Gyorg. I thought Gyorgs were sharks or fish, like fish shark things. Not.
How different is a manta and a shark? It's probably like they're probably cousins or something.
2 different species of fish.
Wow.
It's
probably like the dog and the wolf. They're kind of the same.
No. No.
I don't know about that. Listen.
But the boss fight is fantastic. I will give you that. That was a really cool, like immersive, intense. The music was cool. The flipping onto the blue one and taking out the blue one so that you can get back down to the red one was super awesome. It was very like Skyward Sword for me in this little Minish Cap package, so I loved it. I thought the boss fight was super cool and like very rewarding for such a long drag of a dungeon.
Oh, come on. Not a drag. It's not a...
It's like Mossy said it in the chat. It's very City in the Sky. City in the Sky is like just horrible with how long and painful it is. And I get that feeling from this dungeon. I'm sorry. I can't put it first, but I kind of get what you're saying too, that Deepwood, it probably shouldn't be first.
No!
Deepwood
is a great dungeon, but...
I agree. Here's what I'm willing to do. Okay. I will not put this first, but maybe I will take what's in second.
The Fortress Winds. No, this is the Palace of Winds.
Thank you. They both confuse me. I would be willing to move Fortress of Winds to first place if we can put this one like below Droplets.
Put it above Droplets, so you got yourself a deal.
Okay.
Okay.
I think the boss can supplement that enough for me.
Yes. Okay. I mean, listen, like it is long, but I just once again, I think that like the comparison to City in the Sky is not fair because that is like that's like a calendar year long. Okay, this one is like long weekend long. Okay, it's like an extra day.
No, this is like a 2.5 week
The
vacation.
item is fun and has utility. The amount of puzzles that are in this of different varieties are amazing. The enemy variety, the combat
For why
options.
though? For why? Like, why does it need to be that much?
Why not? Did you want to just like
Make it be
have
that much for Hyrule Castle, which is like the finished
it
finale.
is?
Then you
Oh,
want the
you
kitchen
want to
sink,
talk
and
about too
we'll
much?
talk.
That's too much.
What? I disagree.
Well, I can't wait
All
till
right,
we start talking about
let's
Dark
talk
Hyrule
about
Cast.
it.
I wanna shout out one last thing with this dungeon, Palace of Winds. It is long, but I actually don't think that it's outrageously long, and I don't think that it's like ultra confusing either, which I think is important. Yes, it's long, but I might argue that you could take a dungeon like let's say the Sword and Shield Maze from Oracle Seasons, or even the Water Temple from Ocarina of Time, or Lakebed Temple, and those are shorter dungeons, but they're so confusing and they're so like navigating them is difficult that it might actually take you longer to do them. And when you're doing those dungeons, you're standing around being like, what do I do? Whereas at least in Palace of Winds, you're constantly like progressing, and yes, it takes a long time, but you're not stuck and you're doing stuff. So there you go. That's my argument for it. Now,
Okay.
you want to talk about combat? You want to talk about too much? Talk about too much of a good thing. Let me talk to you about Dark Nuts, okay? Now, I was under the impression that because it's been I have to be honest, I've played Minish Cap every year for the last couple of years, but when I have, it's mostly been in preparation for the Zelda Dungeon Marathon. So it's not like I'm going around and I'm talking to Swiftblade, I'm talking to Grimblade, and I'm talking to Chad Blade
Yeah.
or whatever. And so I did that. I got every single upgrade, all of them, even the hidden ones, where like your thing charges faster, and like you know I have like 100 arrows. Like so I talked to all of them, and I'm like, this is really going to help me in my fight against like the 1,800 Dark Nuts that are in Dark Hyrule Castle. And I actually don't think it really did that much. There's one move that you can get which kind of helps you, and that is the one where you jump with the item that you get from Palace of Winds. You jump and then you do like the crashing sword gimmick down.
No, you just do that wild spin attack, and you start flipping around to the back of them, and then you annihilate them in like
I
no
don't know.
2 seconds.
I didn't think that was that effective. Now, actually, I actually like do quite like Dark Hyrule Castle. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think this is where one of the ones where I would say the music is actually like a strength, because it's just a take on the classic Hyrule Castle theme. But man, there is like way too many Dark Nuts in this castle. I would also argue that this also goes a little bit too long. Like, maybe it's the final castle, so I'm giving it a little bit more
It's
leeway
kind
in
of
that.
broken up in 2 parts though, so I feel like that helps.
I mean, yeah. Maybe there's just like too many Dark Nuts. If there was like different challenges, let's say like I'm before I get myself in trouble, I am glad they didn't bring back like any of the bosses like we've seen in like Wind Waker or
Okay.
Link Between Worlds. Like I don't
Yeah.
want that, but like something. I don't know, something different. Maybe like one quadrant is Dark Nuts, one is like the ball and chain guys, one is like some Wizardropes, or I don't know, something. And those enemies are scattered around the castle everywhere, anyways. But at a certain point, I was like, oh my god, like I do not want to fight another Dark Nut. Like I don't want to do it. So, and I feel like it's almost a little unfair to lump in the Vadi fight here, because like, you know, technically, yes, that's obviously the final fight of the dungeon, but it's also like the final fight of the game. So I don't know. I don't know where I would rank this on my list of dungeons so far, to be totally honest with you, because I feel like it's very different from everything else. What say you?
I like it more than tell me again, is it Palace Winds?
Okay,
that we were
fortress you dig, palace you jump.
Okay.
Dig, fortress, jump.
I don't know if I'm gonna remember that, but like anyways, so Palace of Winds is very long, but I like that I like that Dark Hyrule Castle is kind of divided by like this kind of like lower region where you're like making your way up there to get to your destination kind of deal. And then you have the gauntlet on the second part. And they give you like those teleportation markers so that you could go out, you could go do some more kinstone stuff if you want, you could go get some more heart piece to prepare for the end of your game or 100% the game if you like. I like that they do that. They give you the option to be like, let's take a break from this final dungeon and the final boss fight to go do a little bit more overworld stuff, because I don't get that a lot in Zelda. So I think that's really cool that they did that. And I would say I always kind of appreciate the gauntlets that happen before the final boss fight, because it kind of is like helping you hone your skill, to remember like what the heck you're supposed to be doing when you get to the boss, so, and then it kind of weakens you a little bit, but maybe you know where the fairies are, so you can go teleport out and get to the fairies. I just kind of like that it's like the villains like final push to like not fight you and like weaken you so they can defeat you, but then you come out triumphant and then you still kick the boss's ass. So I always like gauntlets like that. And then I think that clearly the Dark Nuts are there because they wanted you to go out and get all those special skills and use them. Otherwise, I can see what you're saying, that they are just like not fun, not very easy to get past. It's like the gauntlet is almost too painful. So if you're speedrunning, you better be good at fighting Dark Nuts, because that would be rough without all the skills that I use. But I mostly use that wild spinning attack, and it worked beautifully. So I didn't find a problem with it whatsoever.
Every year I fight those guys with only the spin attack. What I find works really well is actually just throw bombs at them.
Okay, I didn't utilize that, so that I could do that next time. But I like it, and I like that it's in like 4 corners of that like last section of the dungeon. So you're kind of like, it's kind of like the duology of the dungeon, but this one's in quarters. So I like that too. And then what? So we're not gonna lump Vati into this dungeon?
I mean, I guess you can't not lump that fight in. I guess what I'm saying is like I feel like it's almost like cheating a little bit because it's the final fight of the game, but also of the dungeon. It'd kind of be like ranking Hyrule Castle from Twilight Princess and like including that spectacular boss sequence at the end of the game in your ranking of that castle, which like you can't really separate them, but it feels like a cheat code to do that as well,
Mm-hmm. I kind of get what you're saying. Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying with that.
We could still do it. We can do whatever we want, but
let's rank the dungeon as we have them now without talking about Vati for a second, and then we'll see if Vati changes that.
I think Vati does change. I'm just going on record because I think that Vati fight is awesome. Like it's again,
I think it's tough. It's tough.
It is. It's really tough, but
like unforgiving
awesome.
Tough.
And like you use everything, almost everything at your disposal. Like the first section where you have the gust jars, you gotta get the little smog off the eyeballs. Like I think is really fun. I really, really enjoy the part where second phase where you gotta flip over the hands and enter the little tunnels and destroy his hands or whatever. And then when you have to use your 4 sword ability to like shoot back the laser eyeball things at him is awesome. The only part I'm not in love with is like now I'm getting confused. The final part, or maybe it's the second final part where you have to shoot the arrows at the eyeballs around Vati's big eye. Am I getting confused? That's the second phase, right?
So there's the first phase where he's like this wizard kind of looking thing, and then he's an eyeball in the second phase where you're just hitting his eye with the arrows and the sword.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
The arm thing is like the third after you've gotten Zelda.
Okay. The third sequence is awesome. I think that one's awesome. The first sequence is awesome. Second one is like okay. It's just okay.
And then I think the fourth sequence is when you need to retract back. You do the Dead Man's Volley kind of deal, but you just retract back the energy beams to the eyeballs.
That sequence is awesome.
Yeah, I think like the whole time you're fighting him is really cool. I love it that there are like multiple like phases, even in between like there's like a cutscene in between where you get Zelda, you unfreeze her from the stone or whatever, and then you go and you fight him again. And I want to say it was actually during the second phase where I was like, I had to keep going to all the little purple spiky things and getting hearts because I was really struggling. And I was trying not to die and I was out of fairies. And also the rewind feature was very helpful for this portion of the game too, I will say. On the Switch. I needed it. And then, yeah, I think it's kind of cool that you could flip the arms, although I will say that it took me a minute to figure that out. I had no idea what the heck I was supposed to do with that, but I eventually got it. But, like, the last part is probably your, like, last-ditch effort, right? You have to retract the beams back at him, and I think that's pretty cool, too. So it's, like, definitely an interesting, cool boss fight and boss, like, sequences. Right. I wish we just knew a little bit more about Vati, like, a little bit more background information, because he's such a cool boss to fight, but we don't know much about him.
So I just want to point out, by the way, this dungeon has multiple ball and chain warriors, multiple Gibdos, multiple... We're talking double digits. I did a quick count. There are, I want to say, at least 12 Dark Nuts. There are the spinning fire puzzles. There's more stuff in this dungeon than you can possibly fit anywhere. But you're saying that Palace of Winds has too much.
Yes, I still stand by that. I would put this above Palace of Winds.
Damn you. You know what? You know what is actually like one of the most brutal things in this dungeon, which is actually fine if you have the remote control bombs, but it's not if you don't. Is that one sequence where like there's the platform and there's a break and there's the platform that kind of goes in a U shape around this, and there's two bombable blocks there, and you have to like throw your bomb to blow up these blocks, but like you have to time it just right. Where if you have a remote bomb, you could just put it on the platform and blow it up whenever it goes by. But if you don't, it's really tough. I forgot how much of a pain in the butt that actually was. So just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah, I think with Vati included, I think, even though I think that this is like a bit too long and a bit too Dark Knight heavy, a lot too Dark Knight heavy, I think I would probably still rank it second on our list.
Okay. I'd be cool with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well then that brings our list to a close, in fact, and so let's review. In 6th place, we have the Cave of Flamos, and that feels a little bit low, but again, I think like all 6 of these are actually like quite strong. We nitpicked a little bit here, but like they're all fun. Yeah. 5th place, we got the Temple of Droplets. 4th place, the Palace of Winds, the palace where you fly, not where you dig. 3rd place, Deepwood Shrine. 2nd place, Dark Hyrule Castle, and then the top dungeon, I can't believe that we did this, is the Fortress of Winds, where you dig and you fight Mecha Bongo Bongo.
That's the one that I don't like. You don't get the end result. That's so funny.
I just like I get that, but I don't know. I feel like it's just such
a fun dungeon. The dungeon itself is like is not standard. It's like a good dungeon. Like it's fun. It makes me feel smart. I did enjoy it, so I'm not mad.
There you go. So yeah, I'm curious to see what people are going to think of our list, because
I am too. Because here's the thing about less is more that we're saying, and we were saying less is more as in less good dungeons is better than a lot of meh dungeons, but like it's easier. I feel like when we rank a lot of dungeons, our lists make a lot more sense than when we rank only a few.
Probably.
I feel yeah,
because I think for me, and I think maybe for you too, but like I feel like the difference in quality in dungeons from like a game like Twilight Princess or Skyward Sword or even like Ocarina of Time is like significant, where like I think every dungeon is incredible in Ocarina of Time too, but like there are clearly some that are like really, really incredible, and then there's other ones that are like, you know, Dodongo's Cavern, which is like a really, it's a damn fine dungeon, but it's like, it's not a forest temple, it's not a spirit temple. Whereas this one, I feel like you kind of have a collection of like really, really great dungeons that are in that, like I think that they're all kind of like hovering in that like 8.5 out of 10 area, you know?
Okay.
Where like I think that a game like again, Skyward Sword, for example, might have more dungeons, and it's like some of them are 8.5, some of them are like 10. So it makes it a little bit easier to rank. If that makes sense. I don't know. That's how
No,
I feel.
I agree with what you're saying. And overall, I will say, I know I had some like criticisms, but like overall, I don't feel like these dungeons are really sloggy or anything, except for maybe Palace of Winds. I would say that's the only one I don't really care. I wouldn't care to do again. The rest I thoroughly enjoy. So, yeah.
I'll tell you this. If we're talking Twilight Princess, that game is a game of highs and lows, because you got dungeons that are 10 out of 10s, and you've got the absolute stinkers that are like 1 out of 10s. Like, just don't even want to go there. So that's what we mean when we say less is more. Less dark nuts is actually more.
I'm not opposing that. I think that I was able to dispatch them easy enough, but like, yeah, it probably had too many.
Probably indeed. Okay, well, we want you to let us know what you think of our Minish Cap dungeon ranking. We've seen a nice little resurgence of Minish Cap. I've been checking the analytics for Zelda Dungeon, and Minish Cap is like literally at the top of the pile. The only thing above it is the Breath of the Wild interactive map, which will probably be number 1 until the end of time. So, yeah, shout out to everybody playing the Minish Cap. Hope that you've enjoyed it. I love this game. I'm glad that you finally got to pick it up and play it, Al. Very excited about that. And it's a spectacular game. So if you haven't played it yet and you have Nintendo Switch Online with the GBA emulator, check it out. Check it out.
Very much. Yep. Very, very good.
Okay. Anything that we need to wrap up before we get out of here?
Oh, are we going to do Would You Rather next week? Should we throw that out there?
That's right. Yes. Thank you for being on the ball. Okay.
Yeah.
Next week, we want you to get in on the action. We're going to have a tweet out, but you can also let us know over in Discord. We are playing Zelda-themed Would You Rather. So the premise is simple. You ask us a question and phrase it as, would you rather option A or would you rather option B? And give us some scenarios. They could be serious, they could be silly, they could be whatever you want it to be. We just want you to get in on the action. So Would You Rather is coming back next week. So again, over on Discord, over on Twitter, let us know what your Zelda Would You Rather question is, and we try and answer everyone that we get. So you'll hear your question on the show. So yeah, good call, Al. Good call.
Yeah,
I'm
excited for that. That'll be fun.
Weeks you're gone. I don't know what I'm gonna do. All right.
We'll see.
All right, so we are going to jam on out of here, but of course we want you to check us out over on Twitter, at Spiteri316, at Allison Oliva, and at the Zelda Cast. Make sure that you're following for lots of stuff like what we just talked about, like the Zelda Would You Rather. We stream every single week over on Twitch, twitch.tv/the Zelda Cast. We are live streaming. You can see our beautiful faces there, and over on Zelda Dungeon's YouTube channel as well, by the way. So you can, sometimes it's clips, sometimes it's full-length shows. You never kind of know what you're going to get there. So make sure that you check us out. Musical March Madness is going on Zelda Dungeon right now. So drop in on that. Cast your vote for your favorite songs. And lastly, we want you to check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Like and subscribe. That's it. We're going to see everybody back here next week for Zelda Would You Rather. Until then, everybody, take care. Hey everyone! If you enjoyed this clip and want to see more of the Zelda Cast, make sure to head over to your favorite podcast platform of choice and subscribe. There are over 200 episodes in the vault that will provide you with hundreds of hours of Zelda content for you to enjoy. You can listen to us when you're on a walk, fighting Ganon, trying to sleep, whatever. And if you want to see these shows as they happen, make sure to head over to twitch.tv/the Zelda Cast, where you can watch our beautiful faces talk about Zelda every single week. Don't miss out, and we'll see you next time.